Yes, ma'am.
How is that information lost through the culture?
Oh, that's a very good question. And Moody Bible Institute has a really cool film called, I think it's called Empty Cities. How was that lost? How was, I'm going to give you another example. Rome built aqueducts that carried water great distances that we can't build today, but we still have what's left of the aqueducts and can't figure out how they did it. They heated their floors in Roman, old Rome, heated their floors in ways that we can't figure out how they did it. South Americans did brain surgery. And from the skulls that are left, we see the people survived the brain surgery because there was healing afterwards. We can't figure out how they did it. So that is, Victoria, is such an awesome question. And the reason it's such an awesome question is this. What we see throughout history, if you really study history, is that man did incredible things and went to great heights. Like Nebuchadnezzar had the floating gardens of Nebuchadnezzar. And I mean, it was one of the ancient wonders of the world. Okay? And then what happens? Man comes to these great heights because he's made in the image of God and he can do amazing things. And then when he turns from God and rejects the one true creator God, he gets really stupid. And what happens is God holds off his judgment. If you look at history, you'll see this over and over again. God holds off his judgment as long as he can until innocent blood is shed. And when innocent blood is shed and shed and shed, God will not continue to hold his hand back, and he judges peoples and he judges nations. And we see that through the scripture, and we see that through history over and over again. Think about, I didn't even do pictures from South American stuff. There's all sorts of cool stuff in South America. They built Machu Picchu in the sky, and there's these huge remains down there. And we don't know how they did all that stuff. But you know what we do know? We know they got to where they were doing human sacrifice and pulling people's hearts out and while they were still alive and stuff because they were worshiping demons. And God says, okay, we're done. And those whole cultures just disappeared. I mean, literally just disappeared. All the intelligence they had, everything just disappeared. And I would dare to say America needs to pay attention because we are shedding innocent blood 365 days, 7 days a week in this country. It's called abortion. And we are doing it. And now they're starting to consider putting old people to sleep. Oh man, are we on a slippery slope in this country. And God is not going to stay his hand of judgment forever. Because when we start shedding innocent blood, that's when the hand of God eventually will have to judge. And so that's just a great question. You guys have had really, really great questions. I want you to know that. Did somebody else have their hand up there?
I was just going to say, the people are, from what I understand, even in ancient Egypt, the way that they can't understand how they built the pyramids with the blocks. Their accuracy is even closer than an inch.
Yes, absolute specificity.
Right.
Absolutely. And so we have the pyramids, we have, I don't know if I gave you any buildings. Nope, I didn't. There's all sorts of buildings that are still in existence. That the one in South America is cool because there's one that's built with all sorts of weird shaped blocks. And it's still in existence, and it's been through all sorts of earthquakes, and they were quarried someplace else, and some of these blocks are estimated to weigh 2,000 tons. They're huge blocks. They have no kind of binding material between them, and they are so perfectly fitted you can't get a piece of paper in between them. And yet they're not just blocks. They have all these odd shapes that they quarried them out with all these odd shapes because that was art. And they put them together and fitted them so well. And it's kind of like Stonehenge. There you go. That's another example. In England, Stonehenge, they quarried that at great distances, brought it in. It literally sunk into the ground, and yet it was still quarried perfectly so that they have the perfect calendar thing they've got going on there. So ancient man was doing some really radical stuff. Yes?
How do evolutionists explain these artifacts when they prove that ancient man was in test?
I'm going to take you to the movie again to answer your question because it's so blatantly put in the movie. How in the third Indiana Jones did they explain the artifacts? Spaceman. No, it's true. It is how it is explained. They will say that obviously spacemen were here because ancient man couldn't have come up with this on his own. You like that one? Pretty good, huh? It's funny, when I tell people that in seminars, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and when I tell people that, I will have moms contact me later and go, oh, I heard it. It was on the Discovery Channel, and they did the Spaceman thing. See, most of us don't catch it because we're not paying attention. But when they can't explain something, they'll just dump it on the Spaceman. It's the Spaceman. Yes?
When you say spaceman, you're not talking about people going to space.
No, we're talking about aliens coming here. Absolutely. We're talking about aliens coming here. When they found dinosaur footprints with human footprints running along, looks like in the water together in Turkmenistan, it was reported in Russia that that was evidence that spacemen were running around on the beach with the dinosaurs. Because everybody knows man and dinosaurs were separated by millions of years. So if you have their worldview, you're going to have to use the spacemen a lot because things don't line up.
You're going to have to make up things to prove the theory.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why, I'll be honest with you, court of law will not call evolution a theory because a theory is falsifiable and you can't falsify evolution because they'll continue to change it as they need to. So it's a model, and that's why I call ours a biblical scientific creation model. It's really the evolutionary model. It can't be falsified because it continues to change. Just real quickly, because some people need to see this. This is from the Smithsonian Institution showing you the evolution of man that the secular scientists believe. That idea that we came from an ape-like creature. Now, first I want to tell you that if you took every fossil that is supposed to teach you about the human evolution, it would not fill your dining room table at home. If you took every fossil that exists in every museum on the planet that is supposed to represent human evolution, it would not fill your dining room table at home. The evidence doesn't exist. And because of that, if you study this in college, they will not tell you we evolved from apes. They will tell you we evolved from an ape-like creature. And the reason they'll tell you that is because everybody that is in the know knows that no evidence is supporting that we ever came from apes. I want you to understand that. And so the evidence that they have is things like footprints. And because of when they dated the footprints, they drew that picture of that lady to look like that. Don't you hope they never find your footprints. Oh my goodness. Okay, so because of when they dated those, because of radiometric dating, they drew that person to look like that because they figure that's what people look like. They have no evidence to that extent. They found a little 2-inch piece of jawbone, and from that little, the evolutionists, and from that little 2-inch piece of jawbone, drew that whole ape man. Okay? Yeah, a lot of artistic imagination going in here. And then later it was taken off the chart by the evolutionists. It was carried in Scientific America that it was actually taken off the chart. This is Dr. Johansson's Lucy. That is one of the most famous hominids. Lucy was about 3 foot 6 inches high. Everything about her was totally ape-like, except her lower leg, that lower leg was supposed to make it so that she would walk upright. And because of that, notice it's not even the same leg, and because of that, Lucy was said to be evolving into a human being. But the people that went to see the fossil actually had to sign a thing saying they wouldn't say anything to the public that would damage them financially. But they noticed that the lower portion of the leg looked very different than the rest of the fossil. So they asked him, why does this look so different? It doesn't look like it came from the same specimen. They said, well, it didn't. It came from like kilometers away and 60 meters deeper. That's like 180 feet deeper in the soil. So we have to ask if that was Lucy's leg, like what train hit Lucy, to knock her leg that far apart? No, when he was questioned about that, he actually said that they felt justified in putting that together because it looked like a similar species. And so that's how they dealt with that. But the point is that everything about Lucy is ape-like, and God has a great sense of humor. They have found living Lucys in Sumatra. They have upright walking apes that look just like this that they found in Sumatra. God is just funny, I think. I love his sense of humor. Yes, ma'am?
Is that what they did with the Piltdown Man?
Piltdown Man was the...
And they put it with the human skull.
Yeah, there were a couple. There was Java Man, Piltdown Man, and they found hoaxes, yes. I wasn't even going to cover the hoaxes. Basically, what it gets down to is, it's full of that stuff. Basically, what it gets down to is there are apes, there are men. There are no ape men. There are people that think they have an excuse and act like ape men, but there really aren't any ape men, so we're not supposed to act like that. Okay. And so when the evolutionists look at the rocks and the fossils and they see things that don't jive, like what we just talked about, like the dinosaur footprints with the human footprints, they're going to say, oh, spacemen, because people didn't live with them. That is evidence of spacemen as far as an evolutionist is concerned. That is a picture of 2 footprints, of shoe prints actually. They're not even, they look like sandal prints. And in the heel, the left heel, you see a little poor baby trilobite. He got stepped on. Now, yesterday I told you that the trilobite was index fossil, that they lived like a billion years ago, and any rock layer that's found with trilobite in it is dated by the trilobite, which is a really old rock because they believe trilobites evolved a long time ago, about 1 billion years ago. And everybody knows there were no people 1 billion years ago because people didn't evolve till about 1 million years ago. So obviously spacemen stepped on the poor baby trilobite. And that's how it'll be represented on television. I have seen this on television before, okay? I mean, you guys are laughing. And it is funny if it wasn't so sad. All right? So I want you to understand that's how this is handled. Now let's finish up with my personal favorite, which is how do dinosaurs fit into the Bible? Because a lot of people have trouble stuffing dinosaurs into their Bible. And so first we need to understand that the land animals were made on the sixth day, 6,000 years ago. That would have been the dinosaurs. We're going to cover more than just dinosaurs, though, because dinosaurs actually are a particular type of land, four-legged land dragon. They had to actually carry their weight up over their body like a cow or a horse, not down here like a lizard or an alligator. Okay? So the dinosaur actually had a particular hip that allowed it to walk with its body weight up over its legs. Okay? But we're going to cover the winged reptiles that we think of in that grouping, of the water reptiles that we think of in that grouping, like plesiosaurs and elasmosaurs and leviathan and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to cover them all. So sixth day would be the land animals, and the fifth day would be the winged animals and the water critters. They could have got on Noah's Ark. Now, obviously, the water ones didn't have to get on Noah's Ark, but a question a lot of people will ask is, well, how'd they get the dinosaurs on the ark? Because they're huge. Well, dinosaurs didn't start huge. Dinosaurs started as baby dinosaurs. And the largest dinosaur egg we've ever found is only 18 inches long. And even if he took, I personally think that Noah took teenage dinosaurs on the ark, because everybody knows that teenagers are tough and resilient. They'd had to get through that. They'd have a longer reproductive life on the other end of the flood. And everybody knows teenagers hibernate better than any other age group, right? So they'd have been less work. It would have worked, you know? Anyway, so there was no problem getting the dinosaurs on the ark. Now, we know dinosaurs got on the ark, and we know dinosaurs got off the ark, and we know that because our Bible tells us so. In Job chapter 40, starting at the 15th through the 24th verse, you have a lovely description of Behemoth. And Behemoth was an apatosaur, diplodocus, some kind of brontosaurus type dinosaur, or if you're into the land before time, a long neck. Okay, so we have Behemoth. Behemoth has a tail like a cedar tree. Cedar trees were coveted in the ancient world because they were huge, so they'd go long distances to get them. There are some student Bibles in the footnotes, and please be aware, the Bible is the inerrant, authoritative Word of God, no errors. But the footnotes aren't always right. Just be aware of that. Those are people written footnotes after the fact. I've seen footnotes in student Bibles that try to tell you that this is actually describing a hippo or an elephant. I want you to notice that hippos and elephants do not have tails like cedar trees. This is not a hippo or an elephant. That's not what it's talking about. I've even seen some Bibles in the footnotes that try to say that it's talking about the elephant's trunk. And I found that extremely offensive, that think God doesn't know the difference between a nose and a tail. Okay, so that's obviously not going to fly. So we hear it there, and then in Job 41 it talks about the fire-breathing dragon Leviathan. So there really were fire-breathing dragons. I don't know if this is what Leviathan looks like. That's just the best, biggest, nastiest guy I could come up with. Okay, so I have no idea what he looked like, but I know he was a fire-breathing dragon. You want to have some fun? Go home and read Job 41, and it talks about the fire-breathing Leviathan. And so there really were these things, and before the 1840s they were called dragons. They didn't use the word dinosaur until the 1840s. So before that they had other names, and one of the most common names is that they were called dragons. And so we see dragon stories all through history. In the Old Testament, the word that was used for monsters or dragons was tannin or tanim. And so that is actually when Moses and Aaron show up in front of Pharaoh and they throw down Aaron's rod, his rod turns into a tannin. And then, so it turned into a dragon. And then Pharaoh's magician's rods turned into dragons, and then God's dragon was bigger and badder and ate Pharaoh's dragons. I don't know about you, but I think it's a much better story. And it's not the same serpent as what is in the Garden of Eden. Now, I want you to know, King James English, a serpent was any reptile, so it's a good translation when it said serpent for both, okay? But see, today, it's like in King James time, you and I, we'd see a whale like Willie, you know, and we'd say it's a whale. And they'd say it's a great fish, and we'd look at it and go, no, it's a whale. Well, the word fish would have covered it a couple hundred years ago. We've since designated that whales are mammals that breathe air. Does that make sense to everybody? So the words have changed. But these were actually dragons. And I've had pastors, when I've done lectures on this, go back and check their concordance and come back out smiling because it's true, okay? So this is actually what happened. There were dragons.